You are about to make a decision. Maybe you will keep listening. Maybe you will scroll away. Either way, you feel in control. You feel like you are choosing. But here is the problem. Your brain made that decision before you knew it. Not by milliseconds, by seconds, possibly longer. The feeling of choice you experience right now, the sense that you are the author of your next thought, is arriving after the fact. Like a news anchor reading a teleprompter, convinced they are coming up with the words themselves. What if everything you believe about your own mind is wrong? What if the sensation of deciding is just the brain's way of explaining something it has already done? And what if quantum physics, the most successful scientific theory in human history, has been trying to tell us this for almost a century, and we just refuse to listen? Right now, as you read these words, roughly 86 billion neurons are firing inside your skull. Each one connects to thousands of others through synapses, forming a web of electrical impulses so dense that scientists estimate there are more potential connections in your brain than there are atoms in the known universe. This is the machinery that produces your thoughts, your memories, your sense of self. And for centuries, we assumed something special was happening in there, something that transcended physics. We called it consciousness. We called it the soul. We called it free will. The idea seemed obvious. You think about raising your hand, then you raise it. Thought precedes action. Will precedes deed. This is how we experience the world moment to moment, decision to decision. It feels so immediate, so undeniable, that questioning it seems almost absurd. But then the scientists arrived. In 1983, a physiologist named Benjamin Libet conducted an experiment at the University of California, San Francisco, that would shake the foundations of how we understand human agency. The setup was deceptively simple. Participants were asked to flick their wrists whenever they felt like it. While doing so, they watched a specially designed clock and noted the exact moment they felt the urge to move. Meanwhile, Libet monitored their brains using electroencephalography, measuring a signal called the readiness potential, a slow buildup of electrical activity in the motor cortex that scientists had known about since the 1960s. What Libet found disturbed everyone. The readiness potential began approximately 500 milliseconds before subjects reported feeling the urge to move, half a second. That might not sound like much, but think about what that means. The brain had already begun preparing the action before the person experienced any conscious intention to act. The feeling of deciding came after the decision had already been made. Libet himself was troubled by his findings. In a later interview, he said the tendency to press a button may be building up for 500 milliseconds, but the conscious mind retains the right to veto any action at the last moment. He wanted to preserve some role for conscious will, even if only as a kind of last-minute override. But the experiments kept coming, and they kept getting worse. In 2008, a team of researchers led by John Dylan Haynes at the Max Planck Institute for Human Cognitive and Brain Sciences took Libet's work to an entirely new level. Using functional magnetic resonance imaging, they monitored brain activity while participants made simple decisions about whether to press a button with their left hand or their right hand. The participants could make this choice whenever they wanted and were asked to note when they felt they had consciously decided. The results were staggering. Haynes and his colleagues found that patterns of brain activity in two specific regions, the frontopolar cortex and the precuneus, could predict which button the participant would press up to 7 seconds before they consciously made the decision. Let that sink in. 7 seconds. That is not a momentary lag. That is an eternity in neurological terms. As Haynes put it, many processes in the brain occur automatically and without involvement of our consciousness. This prevents our mind from being overloaded by simple routine tasks. But when it comes to decisions, we tend to assume they are made by our conscious mind. This is questioned by our current findings. The conscious experience of choosing, that feeling of deliberation and agency you have right now, appears to be a story the brain tells itself after the fact, a narrative constructed to make sense of processes that have already occurred without any input from what we call the self. But here is where it gets truly strange, because the problem is not just neuroscience, it is physics itself, and the implications reach far beyond the firing of neurons. To understand why physics threatens free will, we need to go back to one of the most revolutionary discoveries in the history of science. In 1905, a 26-year-old patent clerk in Switzerland named Albert Einstein published a paper that would eventually transform our understanding of space, time, and reality itself. The theory of special relativity showed that space and time are not separate things. They are woven together into a single fabric called space-time. This sounds abstract, but the implications are profound. In the classical view of the world, there is a clear distinction between past, present, and future. The past has happened. The future has not. The present is the knife edge between them, the only moment that truly exists. This is how we experience time. This is how we live our lives. The past is memory. The future is possibility. The present is reality. But Einstein's equations tell a different story. According to special relativity, observers moving at different speeds will disagree about what events are simultaneous. What is happening now for you might be happening in the past or the future for someone else. Depending on how fast they are moving relative to you, there is no universal now. There is no cosmic present moment that divides what exists from what does not. What this suggests, and what many physicists and philosophers have concluded, is that we live in what is called a block universe. In this picture, space-time is not a flowing river with a special moment called the present. It is a four-dimensional block that simply exists all at once. Past, present, and future are equally real. They are different regions of the block, just as different locations in space are different regions of the block. Your birth is in there. Your death is in there. Every moment of your life, every decision you ever made or ever will make exists eternally, frozen in the geometry of space-time. Einstein himself was explicit about what this meant for free will. In 1932, he wrote, "I am a determinist. As such, I do not believe in free will. I believe with Schopenhauer. We can do what we wish, but we can only wish what we must." He elaborated further with a haunting analogy about the moon. If the moon, in the act of completing its eternal way around the Earth, were gifted with self-consciousness, it would feel thoroughly convinced that it was traveling its way of its own accord. So would a being, endowed with higher insight and more perfect intelligence, watching man and his doings, smile about man's illusion that he was acting according to his own free will. Think about what that implies. The moon does not choose to orbit the Earth. It follows the curvature of space-time created by Earth's mass. And yet, if the moon could think, it would feel like it was choosing. Just as you feel like you are choosing right now. Just as you have felt like you were choosing your entire life. The sensation of freedom, according to Einstein, is not evidence that we are free. It is evidence that we are ignorant of the causes that determine our behavior. But perhaps you are thinking, wait, quantum mechanics changed everything. Einstein's deterministic worldview was replaced by a universe of probability and uncertainty. Surely that means the future is open. Surely that means we have room to choose. And this is where things get terrifying. In the early 20th century, physicists discovered that at the smallest scales, nature behaves in ways that defy common sense. Particles do not have definite positions until they are measured. They exist in superpositions, smeared across multiple possibilities at once. When you look, the superposition collapses, and you get a specific result. But which result you get appears to be genuinely random. Not random because we lack information. Random in principle, fundamentally, irreducibly, cosmically random. This is the famous indeterminism of quantum mechanics, and at first glance, it seems like salvation for free will. If the future is not determined by the past, maybe there is room for genuine choice. Maybe our decisions are not inevitable after all. But this is an illusion, and it only takes a moment of thought to see why. Consider what it would mean for your choices to be random. Random does not mean free. Random means arbitrary. Random means purposeless. Random means your decision has no connection to your values, your desires, your reasons. If you chose coffee over tea this morning because a quantum fluctuation in your brain tipped the scales, in what sense did you make that choice? You did not. Something happened. But you, as an agent with preferences and intentions, had nothing to do with it. As the theoretical physicist Carlo Rovelli, a professor at the Centre de Physique Théorique de Lumini at Aix-Marseille University, has written, "The indeterminism of quantum mechanics is governed by a rigorous probabilistic dynamics. The equations of quantum mechanics do not determine what will happen, but determine strictly the probability of what will happen. In other words, they certify that the violation of determinism is strictly random. This goes in exactly the opposite direction from human freedom to choose. You are trapped between two equally devastating alternatives. Either your actions are determined by prior causes, in which case you could not have done otherwise, or they are random, in which case they are not truly yours. Either way, the concept of free will as we normally understand it, the idea that you are the ultimate source of your choices, evaporates. This is not philosophy, this is physics. But hold on. There is one more twist, one more experiment, one more paradox that cuts even deeper. In 1964, a physicist named John Stuart Bell proved a theorem that would eventually win his collaborators the Nobel Prize. Bell's theorem concerns quantum entanglement, the phenomenon Einstein famously dismissed as spooky action at a distance. When two particles are entangled, measuring one instantly affects the other, no matter how far apart they are. Not at the speed of light, instantly. Bell showed that if you assume the universe is locally realistic, meaning that physical properties exist independently of measurement, and that information cannot travel faster than light, then the correlations between entangled particles must obey certain mathematical constraints called Bell inequalities. Quantum mechanics predicts these inequalities will be violated. And every experiment ever conducted, culminating in the 2015 loophole-free test that earned Alan Aspect, John Clauser, and Anton Zeilinger the 2022 Nobel Prize in Physics, has confirmed that quantum mechanics is right. The Bell inequalities are violated. The universe is not locally realistic. But here is what most people miss about Bell's theorem. There is one loophole. One way to escape the conclusion that the universe is genuinely non-local. And it has a name that should send a chill down your spine. Superdeterminism. In a BBC interview in 1985, Bell himself explained it. There is a way to escape the inference of superluminal speeds and spooky action at a distance, but it involves absolute determinism in the universe, the complete absence of free will. Suppose the world is superdeterministic, with not just inanimate nature running on behind-the-scenes clockwork, but with our behavior, including our belief that we are free to choose to do one experiment rather than another, absolutely predetermined. Think about what Bell is saying. The only way to save locality, the only way to avoid the conclusion that entangled particles are somehow communicating faster than light, is to accept that the entire experiment, including the scientists' choices about how to set up their detectors, was predetermined from the beginning of the universe. The experimenter's decision to measure polarization in one direction rather than another was not free. It was correlated with the hidden properties of the particles in a way that was fixed at the Big Bang. Superdeterminism is not popular among physicists. Anton Zeilinger, one of the Nobel laureates, has said that if superdeterminism is true, it would bring into question the value of science itself. He argues that we always implicitly assume the freedom of the experimentalist. This fundamental assumption is essential to doing science, but some physicists disagree. Nobel laureate Gerard 't Hooft has spent decades developing a cellular automaton interpretation of quantum mechanics that embraces superdeterminism. As he puts it, everybody in our universe has a common past, and so they are correlated. The photons emitted by a quasar are correlated with the photons emitted by another quasar. It is not true those quasars are independent. And physicist Sabine Hossenfelder, along with Tim Palmer, has published papers defending superdeterminism as a promising approach, not only to solve the measurement problem, but also to understand the apparent non-locality of quantum physics. This is where we arrive at the heart of the paradox. If quantum mechanics is correct, and it has never failed an experimental test, then either the universe is non-local in a deeply strange way, or it is superdeterministic. Either particles influence each other instantaneously across cosmic distances, or every event since the beginning of time has been predetermined, including every thought you have ever had, every choice you believe you have made, and the fact that you are reading this sentence right now. Either way, free will is in trouble. Let us pause and take stock of where we are. Neuroscience tells us that our brains make decisions before we are aware of them. Physics tells us that either the universe is deterministic, in which case the future is fixed, or it is random, in which case our choices are not truly ours. And quantum mechanics, far from rescuing free will, confronts us with a choice between non-locality and superdeterminism, neither of which leaves room for the kind of agency we believe we have. But what does this actually mean for your life, for your sense of self, for everything you care about? Neuroscientist and philosopher Sam Harris, who holds a PhD from UCLA, has written extensively about the implications. In his book Free Will, he puts it bluntly, free will is an illusion. Our wills are simply not of our own making. Thoughts and intentions emerge from background causes of which we are unaware and over which we exert no conscious control. We do not have the freedom we think we have. Harris asks a simple question. Where do your thoughts come from? If you pay attention, if you really watch your mind, you will notice that thoughts simply appear. You do not think them into existence. You do not choose what you will think next. An idea arises, a desire surfaces, an intention forms. And then, after the fact, you claim ownership. Try this right now. Think of a city. Any city. Did you choose which city popped into your mind? Or did it just appear? And if you now think of a different city to prove you have free will, where did that intention come from? Did you create it from nothing? Or did it too emerge from causes you did not set in motion? Harris writes, you are not in control of your mind because you, as a conscious agent, are only part of your mind, living at the mercy of other parts. This is the insight that runs through all the neuroscience, all the physics, all the philosophy. The self that believes it is making choices is not the author of those choices. It is a story the brain tells to explain what has already happened. A narrator who believes they are a character with agency, when in fact they are simply reading from a script they did not write. If I had truly been in someone else's shoes, Harris argues, with their genes and life experience and an identical brain in an identical state, I would have acted exactly as they did. There is no extra part of me that could decide to see the world differently. This sounds disturbing. It sounds nihilistic. It sounds like it should lead to despair or moral chaos. But something strange happens when you actually take it seriously. In 2006, two mathematicians at Princeton University, John Conway and Simon Kochen, published a theorem that added another layer to this already complex picture. The Conway-Kochen Free Will Theorem states that if experimenters have free will, in the sense that their choices are not determined by prior events, then elementary particles must have a similar kind of freedom. Conway explained it this way: I just decided to throw that piece of paper on the floor. I do not believe that was determined at the start of the Big Bang, 14 billion years ago. I think it is ludicrous to imagine that the entire development of the universe was predetermined. If that is indeed true, Conway and Kochen proved, then particles themselves must be making choices that are not predetermined. As Kochen put it, from moment to moment, nature does not know what it is going to do. A particle has a choice. But here is the critical point. The theorem also works in reverse. If particles are not free, then neither are experimenters. The mathematics is ironclad. Either freedom exists at every level of reality, from the quantum to the cosmic, from atoms to human beings, or it exists nowhere at all. And this is where a curious hope emerges from the wreckage. Perhaps the question is not whether we have the kind of free will we thought we had. Perhaps that concept was always confused, always incoherent, always based on a misunderstanding of what it means to be a choosing agent in a physical universe. Perhaps what matters is something else entirely. In 2012, neuroscientist Aaron Scherger and his colleagues published a paper in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences that reinterpreted the famous Libet experiments. Scherger proposed that the readiness potential, that slow buildup of brain activity that precedes conscious intention, is not actually a sign of an unconscious decision. Instead, it reflects random neural fluctuations that are always present in the brain. When we make an arbitrary decision, like when to flick our wrist, we are essentially waiting for these fluctuations to cross a threshold. As Scherger explains, when the imperative to produce a movement is weak, the precise moment at which the decision threshold is crossed is determined by spontaneous fluctuations in neural activity. The readiness potential, in this view, is not evidence that the brain decided before we knew it. It is evidence that for arbitrary choices, there was never a real decision to make in the first place. We just waited until background noise pushed us over the edge. This interpretation does not restore free will in the traditional sense, but it does suggest that the Libet experiments were misunderstood. They do not show that our brains make all our decisions before we know it. They show that for meaningless, arbitrary choices, there is no decision-making process at all, just noise. For meaningful decisions, the real ones that define our lives, the picture may be different. When you choose a career, when you fall in love, when you commit to a principle, you are engaging in extended deliberation that cannot be reduced to random neural fluctuations or split-second brain signals. These processes unfold over hours, days, years. They involve reasons, values, reflection. And maybe that is where freedom lives. Not in some magical ability to violate the laws of physics. Not in some ghostly soul that stands outside the causal order, but in the capacity to be shaped by reasons. In the ability to learn, to change, to become something different than you were. The physicist Lee Smolin, in his book Time Reborn, argues against the block universe interpretation of relativity. He believes time is physically fundamental, not an illusion. In his view, the future is genuinely open, and the laws of physics themselves may evolve. This remains a minority position, but it suggests that the physics of free will is not fully settled. There may be room in the equations for something we do not yet understand. Something that captures the intuition that the future is not simply waiting to be discovered, but is genuinely created through the unfolding of events. The philosopher Daniel Dennett has argued for decades that free will is compatible with determinism, properly understood. On this compatibilist view, freedom is not about being uncaused. It is about being the right kind of cause. A free person is one whose actions flow from their own desires, beliefs, and values, even if those desires, beliefs, and values are themselves the products of prior causes. Imagine a thermostat. It responds to temperature changes by turning the heat on or off. In some sense, it makes decisions, but we do not call it free because its decisions are too simple, too mechanical, too lacking in the complexity we associate with genuine agency. Now imagine a human being. You also respond to inputs. You also process information and produce outputs, but the complexity is staggering. Your decisions emerge from an incomprehensibly intricate web of memories, associations, values, and reasonings. And crucially, you can reflect on this process. You can think about your own thinking. You can change your mind. Maybe that is what freedom is. Not the ability to escape causation, but the ability to participate in a causal process of sufficient complexity and self-reflection that it deserves to be called choosing. So where does this leave us? The science is clear on several points. Your brain processes decisions before you become conscious of them. The universe is either deterministic or random, neither of which supports the traditional notion of libertarian free will. Quantum mechanics does not rescue agency, it traps us between non-locality and superdeterminism. And the feeling of being a choosing self is constructed after the fact, a story told by neural processes you did not create and cannot fully control. But here is what the science does not tell us. It does not tell us that life is meaningless. It does not tell us that morality is impossible. It does not tell us that we should stop deliberating, stop caring, stop trying to become better versions of ourselves. Because even if you are not the ultimate author of your thoughts, you are still the process through which those thoughts become actions. Even if your choices emerge from causes you did not set in motion, they are still your choices, in the sense that they emerge from your particular configuration of matter and energy, your unique history, your irreplaceable perspective on the universe. Einstein, the determinist, spent his life fighting for peace and social justice. He did not conclude that effort was pointless because the outcome was predetermined. He understood that his efforts were part of the causal chain, that the predetermined future included his struggles, that the block universe contained his resistance as well as the evils he opposed. Sam Harris, who denies free will more forcefully than almost anyone alive, has said that understanding the illusory nature of free will makes him more compassionate, not less. If people cannot ultimately help being who they are, he argues, then hatred and contempt become harder to justify. We can still hold people accountable. We can still have prisons and incentives and consequences. But we can do so without the cruelty that comes from believing that others freely chose to be evil. This is the paradox at the heart of the matter. Recognizing that free will is an illusion does not make your choices less important. It makes them more important. Because if there is no ghost in the machine, no soul that can override the physics, then everything depends on the configuration of the machine itself, on your education, your experiences, your environment, on the reasons you are exposed to, and the values you are taught. You cannot step outside the causal order and choose from a position of absolute freedom, but you can participate in shaping the causal order. You can be part of the chain of causes that determines what happens next. And maybe that is enough. Maybe the real insight is not that you lack something you thought you had. It is that you are something more than you realized. You are not a prisoner of physics. You are an expression of physics. The universe is not happening to you. It is happening as you. The atoms in your body were forged in the hearts of dying stars. The structure of your brain was shaped by billions of years of evolution. The thoughts arising in your mind right now are the latest tremor in a wave that began with the Big Bang itself. You are the universe experiencing itself. You are the cosmos becoming conscious of its own existence. You are matter arranged in such a way that it asks questions about matter. And in this light, the question of free will begins to seem less like a problem and more like a mystery to be lived. Not solved, not escaped, just lived with full awareness of what you are. Einstein was right, you are the moon, orbiting in accordance with forces you did not choose. But Einstein also understood something else. The moon is beautiful. Its orbit is beautiful. The mathematics that describes its motion is beautiful. And so are you. You are the part of the universe that wonders whether it is free. You are the part of the cosmos that cares about the answer. And in a universe that runs on clockwork, that by itself is a kind of miracle. Not the miracle of escaping physics, the miracle of being physics and knowing it, and asking what it means. That question may have been inevitable from the moment of the Big Bang. Your ancestors may have been fated to evolve neurons capable of posing it. Your particular brain may have been determined to read these words at this exact moment. But here you are, asking, wondering, alive to the strangeness of your own existence. And that perhaps is the only freedom that ever mattered. But we are not finished. Because there is another layer to this story, a layer that makes everything we have discussed even more unsettling. We have talked about neuroscience and physics. We have talked about the Libet experiments and the block universe. We have talked about quantum mechanics and superdeterminism. But there is one more phenomenon we need to confront. One more experiment that changes everything. It involves what physicists call the measurement problem. And it strikes at the heart of what it means to be an observer in a quantum universe. Here's the setup. In quantum mechanics, particles do not have definite properties until they are measured. An electron does not have a definite position. It exists in a superposition, a cloud of probability spread across multiple locations. When you measure it, the superposition collapses, and you get a specific result. But here is the question that has haunted physics for a century. What counts as a measurement? What is special about observation that causes the wave function to collapse? The physicist Eugene Wigner proposed a famous thought experiment to illustrate the problem. Imagine his friend conducts a quantum experiment in a sealed laboratory. Before Wigner looks inside, is his friend in a superposition of having seen different results? Or did the friend's observation already collapse the wave function, even before Wigner knew about it? This is not just philosophy. It has experimental implications, and it suggests something deeply strange about the relationship between consciousness and physical reality. Some physicists, like the Nobel laureate Roger Penrose, have proposed that consciousness itself plays a fundamental role in quantum mechanics. In his 1989 book, The Emperor's New Mind, Penrose argued that the collapse of the wave function might be related to gravitational effects at the quantum scale, and that this process might be connected to conscious experience. Penrose and the anesthesiologist Stuart Hameroff have developed a theory called orchestrated objective reduction, which proposes that quantum computations occurring in structures called microtubules within neurons give rise to consciousness. If this theory is correct, then consciousness is not merely produced by the brain. It is woven into the fabric of physical reality at the deepest level. This sounds like good news for free will. If consciousness is fundamental, maybe it has powers that transcend classical physics. Maybe the mind can influence quantum processes in ways that create genuine freedom. But not so fast. Even if consciousness plays a role in quantum mechanics, that does not mean it escapes physical law. The Penrose-Hameroff theory, if correct, would make consciousness a physical process, subject to physical equations. It would explain how consciousness arises from quantum effects. It would not explain how consciousness could somehow stand outside the causal order and make free choices. This is the trap we keep falling into. We look for some special physical process that could ground free will, quantum randomness. consciousness-induced wave function collapse, microtubule computations. And each time, we discover that making consciousness more physical does not make it more free. It just makes it more determined, or more random, neither of which is what we wanted. There is another experiment we need to discuss, one that extends the Haynes findings and makes them even more troubling. In 2011, Itzhak Fried and his colleagues at UCLA conducted a study with epilepsy patients who had electrodes implanted directly in their brains for medical purposes. These patients volunteered to participate in a Libet-style experiment, allowing researchers to record from individual neurons while they made simple decisions. The results were remarkable. Fried's team found that activity in individual neurons could predict a patient's decision to press a button with greater than 80% accuracy, and this activity began approximately 700 milliseconds before the patient reported any conscious intention to move. Let that number sink in. 700 milliseconds, almost 3/4 of a second, and this was from individual neurons, not just broad patterns of brain activity. Fried commented that his findings did not necessarily disprove free will, because the brain is complex and decisions involve many factors, but he acknowledged that the results were consistent with the idea that conscious intentions emerge from unconscious neural processes that are already well underway. And it gets worse. In 2013, Chun-Seong Soon, Anna Hengshi-He, Stefan Bode, and John Dylan Haynes conducted a follow-up study to their famous 2008 work. This time, instead of asking participants to choose between pressing a left or right button, they asked them to choose whether to add or subtract two numbers. This was a more abstract decision, involving mental operations rather than physical movements. The researchers found they could predict participants' choices up to 4 seconds before the participants reported being aware of their decision. 4 seconds for an abstract mental operation. Not just pushing a button, but deciding how to perform arithmetic. Think about what this means for every decision you make. Every time you weigh options in your mind, every time you deliberate about a choice, neural processes are already tilting the scales, already determining the outcome. Seconds before you experience the feeling of deciding. Some readers might be tempted to dismiss all of this as irrelevant to real-life decisions. These experiments involve trivial choices, pressing buttons, flicking wrists, adding versus subtracting. Nobody thinks free will hangs on such meaningless actions, but this objection misses the point. The experiments reveal something fundamental about how the brain works. They show that conscious awareness arrives late to the party. The neural computations that produce our decisions are already complete, or nearly complete, before we experience any sense of choosing. There is no reason to think this process is different for important decisions. The difference is only in the timescale. When you choose a career, you deliberate for months. When you choose a spouse, you spend years. But throughout all that deliberation, neural processes are occurring below the threshold of consciousness, shaping your preferences, weighting your options, moving you toward a conclusion you will eventually experience as a choice. And here's the key insight. You cannot introspect on these processes. You have no access to the neural machinery that produces your decisions. All you have is the output, the conscious experience of having decided. And that experience arrives after the decision has already been made. This is what neuroscientist Patrick Haggard, a professor at University College London who has spent decades studying volition, means when he says we feel we choose, but we do not. Let us return to quantum mechanics and consider one more paradox. We talked about Bell's theorem and the choice between non-locality and superdeterminism. But there is another interpretation of quantum mechanics that we have not fully explored. An interpretation that eliminates the measurement problem entirely, but at a staggering cost. It is called the many worlds interpretation, and it was first proposed by physicist Hugh Everett III in 1957. According to many worlds, the wave function never collapses. Instead, every time a quantum measurement is made, the universe splits. All possible outcomes occur, but in separate branches of reality. When you flip a quantum coin, there is a universe where it lands heads and a universe where it lands tails. Both are equally real. You just find yourself in one of them. At first, this seems like it should be good for free will. If every possible outcome happens somewhere, then in some sense, all choices are made. You are not trapped by a single deterministic timeline. You are spread across a vast tree of branching realities, experiencing every possible version of your life. But think about it more carefully. In the many worlds interpretation, you do not choose which branch you end up in. The splitting is deterministic. Given the initial quantum state, the laws of physics determine exactly how the universe branches. There is no moment of genuine choice. There is only the illusion of choice created by the fact that you find yourself in one branch rather than another. As philosopher David Wallace, one of the leading defenders of many worlds, has argued, the interpretation is fully deterministic. The appearance of randomness comes from our ignorance of which branch we will find ourselves in, not from any genuine indeterminacy in the physics. So even many worlds does not rescue free will. It just replaces one kind of determinism with another. Instead of a single fixed timeline, you have a branching tree of fixed timelines. Your choices are still not free. They are just distributed across multiple realities, all of which were inevitable from the initial conditions of the universe. At this point, you might be wondering, does anyone actually believe in free will anymore? The answer is complicated. Surveys show that most people, when asked, say they believe in free will. The intuition is powerful and nearly universal. We experience ourselves as choosing. We hold people responsible for their actions. We structure our entire legal and moral framework around the idea that people could have done otherwise. But among philosophers and scientists who have thought carefully about the issue, opinion is divided. A significant minority endorses hard determinism or hard incompatibilism, the view that free will is incompatible with either determinism or indeterminism and therefore does not exist. This camp includes Sam Harris, neuroscientist Robert Sapolsky, and many physicists who take the implications of their theories seriously. Another large group endorses compatibilism, the view that free will, properly understood, is compatible with determinism. On this view, what matters is not whether your choices are caused, but whether they are caused in the right way. If your actions flow from your own desires and values, and you are not being coerced or manipulated, then you are free in the only sense that matters. This is the position of Daniel Dennett, and it has ancient roots in philosophers like David Hume and Thomas Hobbes. A smaller group holds out for libertarian free will, the view that humans have a genuine power of self-determination that transcends physical causation. Some in this camp appeal to quantum mechanics, although as we have seen, this move faces serious problems. Others appeal to emergent properties of complex systems, or to dualist views that posit a non-physical mind. But here is what is striking. Almost no one who has engaged seriously with the science believes in the naive, folk psychological version of free will that most people assume they have. The version where you are a little ghost inside your brain, separate from the physical machinery, pulling levers and making choices from a position of absolute freedom. That version of free will is dead. It was killed by neuroscience, by physics, by the relentless accumulation of evidence that we are physical systems operating according to physical laws. What remains is a question of interpretation. How should we understand ourselves, given what we know? What concepts should we use to make sense of our agency? What does it mean to be a choosing being in a universe that appears to leave no room for choice? Let us step back and consider what is really at stake. Free will is not just an abstract philosophical puzzle. It underlies our entire system of moral responsibility. We praise people for their virtues and blame them for their vices. We reward achievement and punish wrongdoing. We feel pride in our successes and guilt for our failures. All of this assumes that people could have done otherwise, that the criminal could have chosen not to commit the crime, that the hero could have chosen not to be brave, that you, right now, could choose to stop reading, but are freely choosing to continue. If free will is an illusion, what happens to all of this? Some philosophers argue that moral responsibility can survive without libertarian free will. On the compatibilist view, what matters is not whether you could have done otherwise in some absolute metaphysical sense, but whether your action reflected your own values and was not the result of coercion or compulsion. A person who steals because they are greedy is responsible in a way that a person who steals because they are threatened at gunpoint is not, even if both actions were ultimately determined by prior causes. Others argue that we need to radically rethink our practices of blame and punishment. If criminals could not ultimately help being criminals, then the purpose of punishment cannot be retribution. We cannot justly inflict suffering on someone simply because they did wrong, if they could not have done otherwise. Instead, the only defensible purposes of the criminal justice system become deterrence, incapacitation, and rehabilitation. Consequences for behavior, not punishment for choices. Neuroscientist Robert Sapolsky, a professor at Stanford University and author of Determined, A Science of Life Without Free Will, has argued forcefully for this conclusion. In his view, the more we learn about the brain, the harder it becomes to draw a line between the kind of compulsion we excuse and the kind of action we blame. If brain tumors and childhood trauma and genetic predispositions all influence behavior in ways we cannot control, then in what sense are any of our actions truly free? Sapolsky does not conclude that we should eliminate all consequences for behavior. We still need to protect society from dangerous individuals. We still need incentives and disincentives to shape conduct. But he argues we should give up the satisfaction of blame, the pleasure of righteous anger, the moral comfort of believing that wrongdoers deserve to suffer. This is a hard pill to swallow. It cuts against deep intuitions about justice and fairness, but it may be where the science leads. And yet, there is something that survives all of this, something that the elimination of free will cannot touch. It is the experience itself, the felt sense of being alive, of making choices, of caring about outcomes. Even if that experience is an illusion, it is the most vivid, the most immediate, the most undeniable thing in your existence. You cannot escape it. You cannot step outside it. You are condemned to experience yourself as a choosing agent, even if you know that experience is constructed by neural processes you do not control. And maybe that is okay. Consider an analogy. You know that the colors you see are not properties of objects in the world. They are constructions of your visual system, patterns of neural activity triggered by different wavelengths of light. There is no redness out there in the world. There is only light at certain frequencies and brains that translate those frequencies into experiences of color. But this knowledge does not make the experience of seeing a sunset less beautiful. It does not drain the world of color. It just adds a layer of understanding to an experience that continues unabated. Maybe free will is the same. Maybe knowing it is an illusion does not make the experience of choosing less meaningful. It just adds a layer of understanding to an experience that continues unabated. You will still deliberate. You will still weigh options. You will still feel the tension of difficult choices and the relief of decisions made. None of that goes away just because you understand what is happening at the neural level. And there may be benefits to this understanding. If you know that your thoughts and choices emerge from causes you did not set in motion, you may be less likely to hate yourself for your failures, less likely to torture yourself with regret over decisions that, in retrospect, were inevitable, less likely to feel crushing guilt for being the person that your genes and environment made you. Similarly, if you understand that others could not ultimately help being who they are, you may be less likely to hate them for their flaws, less likely to waste energy on resentment and anger, more able to see other humans as fellow travelers in a universe that none of us chose to enter and none of us fully control. This does not mean giving up on improvement. It means pursuing improvement without the cruelty that comes from believing people freely chose to be broken. It means creating better environments, better incentives, better systems, rather than blaming individuals for being products of bad environments, bad incentives, bad systems. We began this journey with a question. What does quantum physics tell us about free will? The answer, as we have seen, is complicated. Quantum mechanics does not rescue free will from determinism. It trades determinism for randomness, which is no better, or it confronts us with superdeterminism, which is even worse. The block universe of relativity suggests that past, present, and future are equally real, equally fixed, equally beyond our power to change. But the real lesson may be different from what we expected. The real lesson is that we were asking the wrong question. We wanted to know whether we are free, whether our choices are genuine, whether we could have done otherwise. But these questions assume a picture of the self that does not survive scientific scrutiny. They assume there is a you that exists apart from your brain, apart from your history, apart from the causal processes that produced you. A ghost that could somehow stand outside physics and make truly free choices. That ghost does not exist. There is only the brain, only the neurons, only the electrochemical processes that produce what we experience as thought, as desire, as will. But here is the thing about the brain. It is not a simple machine. It is not a thermostat or a calculator. It is the most complex object in the known universe. It contains more connections than there are stars in the galaxy. It produces experiences so rich, so varied, so profound, that they have inspired every work of art, every piece of music, every poem and novel and symphony in human history. And this brain is what you are. Not the ghost, not the soul, not some special ingredient that escapes physics. Just this staggeringly complex physical system, doing what physical systems do, but doing it in a way that gives rise to consciousness, to experience, to the felt sense of being a choosing agent in a world of possibilities. Maybe that is not free will in the traditional sense. Maybe it is something different, something that does not require escaping physics, but rather embracing what physics makes possible. The universe is not happening to you. It is happening as you. Every thought, every choice, every moment of deliberation is the universe exploring its own possibilities through the particular arrangement of matter that calls itself you. And in a cosmos 14 billion years old, stretching across 90 billion light years, containing more galaxies than there are grains of sand on all the beaches of Earth, that is not nothing. That is everything. You are the universe, waking up to itself. You are matter become conscious. You are the part of the cosmos that asks what it means to exist. And whether or not that is freedom in the philosopher's sense, it is certainly something worth preserving, worth honoring, worth wondering about. The experiments have spoken. The math is clear. The science has delivered its verdict on the question that has haunted humanity for millennia. But the experience continues. The choices keep coming. The feeling of being alive, of mattering, of caring about what happens next, remains as vivid as it ever was. And that, in the end, is what we have. Not the freedom we thought we wanted, but something stranger and perhaps more wonderful. The opportunity to be a conscious witness to our own existence, to think about our own thoughts, to wonder about our own wondering. In a universe that runs on clockwork, that is a kind of magic. Not the magic of escaping the mechanism, the magic of being the mechanism and knowing it, and finding it beautiful anyway. Before we close, there is one more scientific finding we must confront, one that complicates everything we have discussed, in ways that may give you a strange kind of hope. In 2012, neuroscientist Aaron Scherger and his colleagues published a paper in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences that challenged the standard interpretation of the Libet experiments. Their work has since convinced many in the field that we may have fundamentally misunderstood what the readiness potential actually means. Here's the problem Scherger identified. When Libet found that brain activity preceded conscious intention by 500 milliseconds, everyone assumed this meant the brain was making a decision before consciousness knew about it. The readiness potential was interpreted as a marker of an unconscious decision, a sign that the neural machinery had already committed to action before the feeling of willing arose. But Scherger proposed an alternative. What if the readiness potential is not a decision signal at all? What if it is simply neural noise? Think about what participants in Libet-style experiments are actually doing. They are asked to make completely arbitrary decisions about when to move. There is no reason to move at one moment rather than another. No deadline, no incentive. The choice is meaningless. In such situations, Scherger argued, the brain does not really make a decision. Instead, ongoing random fluctuations in neural activity eventually cross a threshold, and a movement is triggered. The readiness potential, that slow buildup before movement, is just what these random fluctuations look like when you average across many trials, all aligned to the moment of movement. To test this, Scherger designed a clever experiment he called Libetus interruptus. Participants waited to make spontaneous movements, as in the classic Libet task. But sometimes, before they moved, a tone would sound, and they had to respond as quickly as possible by pressing a button. Here is the key insight. If the readiness potential reflects an ongoing decision process, then the closer a participant is to deciding to move, the faster they should respond to the interruption. And that is exactly what Scherger found. Participants who were about to move anyway responded faster to the tone than participants who were not. This suggests that the brain was not unconsciously deciding to move. It was just fluctuating randomly, and those fluctuations determined both when participants felt like moving and how fast they responded to interruptions. The readiness potential is not evidence that decisions are made unconsciously before we know about them. It is evidence that for arbitrary choices, there may not be any decision at all, just noise crossing a threshold. Scherger put it this way: when the imperative to produce a movement is weak, the precise moment at which the decision threshold is crossed leading to movement is determined by ongoing stochastic fluctuations in neural activity. This does not restore free will in the traditional sense, but it removes one of the most cited pieces of evidence against it. The Libet experiments may not show what everyone thought they showed. The brain may not be making decisions before we know about them. For meaningless choices, there may be nothing to know. And this raises a crucial question. What about meaningful choices? When you decide which job to take, which person to marry, which principles to live by, you are not waiting for random fluctuations to cross a threshold. You are deliberating, weighing evidence, consulting your values, projecting into the future. These are extended processes that unfold over time, involving multiple brain regions, drawing on memory and emotion and reasoning. The neuroscience of these complex decisions is much less clear than the neuroscience of button pressing. It is possible that for the choices that actually matter, consciousness plays a more significant role than Libet's experiments suggest. The jury is still out. There is also the curious case of the Conway-Kochen Free Will Theorem, which we touched on earlier but deserve to examine more closely. John Conway was one of the greatest mathematicians of the 20th century, famous for inventing the game of life, a cellular automaton that demonstrates how complex patterns can emerge from simple rules. His colleague Simon Kochen is a distinguished logician who decades earlier had proven a result called the Kochen-Specker theorem, which places constraints on hidden variable theories in quantum mechanics. In 2006, Conway and Kochen published a paper in the journal Foundations of Physics that combined insights from quantum mechanics and special relativity to prove a remarkable theorem. If the experimenters in a quantum experiment have free will, meaning their choices are not determined by the past, then elementary particles must also have a kind of free will. Conway was careful to explain what he meant. I believe, and you do not have to, that I just picked up this pen and it was not determined at the start of the Big Bang. It is not a function of the past history of the universe. I think I just did that in the last few seconds, and before then, there was nothing in the world that you could have analyzed to tell you that I would do that. If that is true for humans, Conway and Kochen proved, then it must also be true for particles. When an electron is measured, which outcome it gives cannot be predetermined by anything in its past. The particle is, in some sense, making a spontaneous choice. But the theorem cuts both ways. If the universe is deterministic, if every event is fixed by prior causes, then neither humans nor particles have free will. The theorem forces a choice. Either freedom exists at every level of reality, from quarks to consciousness, or it exists nowhere at all. Conway himself believed in freedom. After proving the theorem, he said, "The glimmerings of freedom are in every particle, in the clouds, in everything. The particles are all taking free decisions, but superdeterminists like Gerard 't Hooft disagree. They accept the theorem but reject the premise. In their view, neither humans nor particles are free. Every experimental choice is correlated with hidden variables in ways that were fixed at the Big Bang. The appearance of freedom is an illusion at every scale." The Conway-Kochen theorem does not settle the debate, but it clarifies the stakes. You cannot have human freedom without cosmic freedom. Whatever you believe about your own choices, you must believe the same thing about the quantum events unfolding in the depths of matter. Where does this leave us? The science is messy. The philosophy is contested. The intuition is stubborn. We feel free even as we contemplate the possibility that we are not. Perhaps the deepest insight comes from recognizing that the question of free will is not really about physics at all. It is about identity. It is about what we mean by the self. When we ask whether we have free will, we are asking whether there is a self that exists independently of the brain, a self that could have made different choices, a self that is the ultimate source of its own actions. But neuroscience reveals that the self is not a thing. It is a process, a constantly shifting pattern of neural activity that creates the illusion of a unified, persistent observer. The you that existed 5 minutes ago is not the same you that exists now. Atoms have been exchanged. Neurons have fired. Memories have been consolidated or forgotten. The self is more like a river than a rock, always changing, never the same twice. If there is no fixed self, then the question of whether that self has free will dissolves. There is no one to be free. There is only experience, arising moment to moment, shaped by causes we did not choose, producing effects we cannot fully predict. This is not nihilism. It is a kind of liberation. The burden of free will is heavy. It means that every failure is your fault. Every mistake could have been avoided. Every wrong decision was freely chosen. You carry the weight of being the ultimate author of your life. But if free will is an illusion, that weight lifts. You are still responsible in the sense that your actions have consequences. But you are not responsible in the sense that you could have done otherwise. You did what you did because of who you were, and who you were was shaped by factors beyond your control. This may sound like an excuse, but it can also be a source of compassion for yourself, for others, for the whole stumbling, striving, suffering human race. We are all doing our best with the brains we were given. We are all navigating a universe we did not create, according to rules we did not write, toward destinations we did not fully choose. And in that shared predicament, there may be more connection, more understanding, more love than the doctrine of free will ever allowed. The title of this video promised that a quantum paradox proves free will does not exist. That was provocative. Perhaps it was even clickbait. But the reality is more nuanced. What quantum physics shows is that the naive conception of free will, the idea that you are a ghost in the machine making uncaused choices, cannot survive scientific scrutiny. The universe runs on physics. Your brain is made of atoms. Your thoughts are products of electrochemical processes. There is no escape hatch from the causal order. But physics also shows that the universe is stranger than we imagined, that particles can be entangled across cosmic distances, that measurements can affect outcomes instantaneously, that the future may be as real as the past. In such a universe, the categories we brought from everyday experience, categories like choice and freedom and responsibility, may need to be rethought from the ground up. Maybe free will is real, but not in the way we thought. Maybe it exists at the quantum level, in the spontaneous decisions of elementary particles, and somehow bubbles up to influence our brains. This is speculative, but it is not impossible. Or maybe free will is an illusion, but an illusion that serves us well. A story the brain tells to organize experience, to motivate action, to create meaning. In that case, the appropriate response is not to discard the illusion, but to understand it, to use it wisely, to recognize its limits while appreciating its power. Or maybe the whole debate is confused, based on assumptions that dissolve under examination. Maybe the question of whether we are free is like the question of whether the number 7 is happy, grammatically well-formed, but ultimately meaningless. Whatever the answer, the inquiry itself is valuable. Because in asking whether we have free will, we are forced to confront the deepest questions about what we are, how we fit into the natural order, and what, if anything, makes human existence special. Those questions will not be answered by a single experiment or a single theorem. They will be with us for as long as we continue to wonder about ourselves. And that wondering, whatever else it is a gift. The universe produced beings that can ask whether they are free, that can ponder the nature of choice, that can look at the equations of physics and feel a chill down their spine at what they imply. That is remarkable. That is precious. That is worth holding on to, even if, in the final analysis, we never chose to hold on to it at all. You have reached the end of this video. Or rather, the causal processes in your brain have carried you here, producing the experience of having watched, of having learned, of having thought. Whether you chose to stay is a question physics may never fully answer, but you are here. You made it. You participated in the ancient human project of trying to understand ourselves, and for that, whoever or whatever you are, you have my gratitude. The universe is stranger than we knew. The self is more mysterious than we imagined. Free will may be an illusion, or it may be something we cannot yet comprehend. But the inquiry continues, the questions remain, the wonder persists, and that, in the end, may be enough. The atoms in your body were forged in ancient stars that died before the Earth was born. The patterns in your brain are echoes of 3 billion years of evolution. The thoughts you are thinking right now are the latest tremors in a chain of causation that stretches back to the Big Bang itself. You did not choose to exist. You did not choose your parents, your genes, your early experiences, the neural architecture that shapes your every thought. And yet here you are, contemplating the very forces that created you, wondering whether any of it was ever up to you. That is not powerlessness. That is wonder. That is awe. You are the universe knowing itself.